Of course, the black girl plays hero again. They laughed as she paid for a stranger's meal. You'll be fired by morning, they warned. She had $43. She gave $3. She broke the rules. She lost everything. Or did she? Because that stranger was hiding the biggest secret of all. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story. And where you watching from? You know that feeling when you walk into a place and immediately know you don't belong. When every eye seems to measure you and find you wanting. That's exactly what happened one quiet Tuesday night at the Golden Terrace. One of those fancy restaurants where the silverware costs more than most people's weekly groceries. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Elena. Elena Thompson was tired. The kind of tired that lives in your bones and never quite goes away. She'd been on her feet for 9 hours straight, serving people who sometimes looked right through her as if she were invisible. At 32 years old, she knew every corner of the Golden Terrace, every table, every temperamental coffee machine, every spot on the floor that squeaked when you stepped on it. She wore her black uniform with the white apron tied neatly at her waist. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, not a strand out of place. Her name tag read Elena Thompson Server in gold letters that had started to fade at the edges. She'd learned long ago to keep her face pleasant, her voice soft, her movements efficient. That's what they wanted. That's what kept the bills paid and kept a roof over her and her daughter's head. Her daughter, 7-year-old Mia, with her bright eyes and endless questions and dreams bigger than the sky. Mia, who waited at home with the neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, doing homework at their small kitchen table and asking when Mama would be home. Mia, who drew pictures of big houses and fancy dinners and always put the two of them right in the center holding hands. Elena checked her watch. Another hour and a half and she could go home, check on Mia's homework, kiss her good night even if she was already sleeping, and collapse into bed herself. Tomorrow she'd do it all over again. The restaurant was quieter now. The dinner rush had passed. Only a few tables remained occupied, mostly couples lingering over dessert and coffee, speaking in low voices that blended with the soft piano music playing overhead. The lighting was dim and warm, the kind that made everything look softer, more forgiving. That's when the door opened. A young woman stepped inside and Elena noticed her immediately. Not because she was loud or dramatic, but because of how small she seemed, how uncertain. She wore jeans that had seen better days, a faded gray hoodie with the drawstrings uneven, and carried a backpack that looked like it held everything she owned. Her hair needed washing. Her face was pale and drawn. She stood just inside the doorway, looking around like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. Elena recognized that look. She'd worn it herself once years ago. Behind Elena, she heard a soft laugh. She didn't need to turn around to know it was Brandon, another server who'd started 6 months ago and somehow thought those 6 months made him better than everyone else. And beside him would be Sophia, the hostess with the sharp tongue and sharper judgment. "Look what just walked in," Brandon muttered, his voice low but not low enough. "I give her 5 minutes before she realizes she can't afford anything here. Should we even seat her?" Sophia asked, examining her nails like the question was casual, unimportant. "She looks like trouble, probably going to order water and bread and camp out all night." Elena's jaw tightened. She'd heard this before too many times. Comments thrown around like they were nothing, like they weren't talking about real people with real problems and real dignity. The young woman finally moved toward the hostess stand, her steps hesitant. Up close, Elena could see how young she really was. Maybe 22, maybe younger. Her eyes darted around nervously, taking in the white tablecloths, the crystal glasses, the other diners in their nice clothes. "Hi," the young woman said quietly to Sophia. "Table for one, please." Sophia's smile was professional and cold. Do you have a reservation? No, I just as that required. Normally, yes. Sophia glanced past her toward the door, as if hoping someone more appropriate might walk in. We're quite busy tonight. Elena looked around the half-empty restaurant. They weren't busy. Not even close. The young woman's shoulders slumped. Oh, okay. I can. Is there maybe a spot at the bar? I don't need a full table. I haven't eaten all day, and I saw your sign outside and thought, maybe. Her voice trailed off, small and defeated. Brandon stepped forward, his professional smile even faker than Sophia's. Ma'am, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the diner down the street. Their prices are more accessible. And there it was, that word, accessible, like it was helpful, like it wasn't just another way of saying you don't belong here. Elena watched the young woman's face flush red, watched her fingers grip the strap of her backpack tighter, watched her take a small step backward as if physically pushed by the words. Something inside Elena made a decision before her mind fully caught up. I've got this, Elena said, stepping forward. Her voice was calm, clear, steady. She looked directly at the young woman and smiled. A real smile, the kind that reaches your eyes. Come with me, sweetheart. I'll find you a nice, quiet table. Sophia's eyebrows shot up. Elena, we need to check. I said, I've got this. Elena's tone left no room for argument. She gently touched the young woman's elbow, guiding her away from the hostess stand, away from Brandon's smirk and Sophia's judgment. She led her to a small table near the window, tucked away from the other diners, but still warm and welcoming. She pulled out the chair herself. Sit down, honey, Elena said softly. Take a breath. You're okay here. The young woman sat slowly as if the chair might disappear beneath her. Her eyes were shiny with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered. Elena handed her a menu and a glass of water she'd grabbed on the way over. Take your time. Look through this and see what sounds good. I'll be right back. As Elena walked away, she could feel Brandon and Sophia's eyes on her back. She could practically hear their thoughts, but she didn't care. She'd made her choice, and in an hour, that choice would change everything. The young woman's name was Lily. Elena learned that when she came back to take her order, notepad in hand, smiled gentle and patient. Lily, the young woman had said quietly, not offering a last name. Just Lily. Okay, Lily, Elena had replied warmly. What can I get for you tonight? Lily had stared at the menu for a long time, her fingers tracing the prices like she was doing math in her head. Complicated math that kept coming up short. The cheapest entree was $28. The soup was $12. Even a side salad was $9. Lily's voice cracked slightly. Could I maybe just get the soup? The tomato basil. Elena glanced at the girl's thin frame. The way her clothes hung loose, the hollow look in her eyes. Just soup. $12 worth of soup when she clearly needed a full meal. The soup is great, Elena said carefully. But you know what? The chicken with roasted vegetables is really good tonight. Chef made it special. Very filling. Lily shook her head quickly. No, just. The soup is fine. Thank you. Elena nodded, wrote it down, but her mind was already turning. She'd worked here long enough to know the tricks, the small ways servers helped each other out, the unspoken codes. She walked back to the kitchen and put in the order, but she added something else. The chicken, the vegetables, a side of bread that was supposed to come with premium meals. When she brought it out 15 minutes later, Lily's eyes went wide. I didn't order all this, she said, panic creeping into her voice. I can't. I only have enough for the soup. Elena set the plates down gently. Chef's special tonight, she said with a small wink. He made extra and said it would just go to waste. Might as well go to someone who'll appreciate it. You're doing us a favor, really. Lily stared at the food like it might vanish, like it was too good to be true. Slowly, Carefully, she picked up her fork. "Thank you," she whispered, and this time a tear did slip down her cheek. Elena squeezed her shoulder gently. "Eat, sweetheart, take your time." She walked away, letting Lily have privacy for her meal and her emotions. But as she moved through the restaurant, checking on other tables, refilling water glasses, clearing plates, she felt eyes on her. Brandon was watching her, arms crossed, expression knowing and smug. Sophia was whispering to him, both of them glancing between Elena and Lily's table. Elena ignored them. She dealt with worse. But then Lily finished eating. And then came the moment Elena had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. Lily waved her over nervously. Her empty plates pushed to the side. She looked better already. Some color back in her face. Some life back in her eyes. But her hands were shaking as she pulled out a small worn wallet. Could I get the check, please?" she asked. Elena pulled out her pad, did the calculation. Just the soup like Lily had actually ordered. $12 plus tax. "That'll be $13.50, she said gently. Lily opened her wallet. Inside was a scatter of bills and coins. She counted it carefully, her lips moving silently. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time her face grew paler. She looked up at Elena, eyes wide with horror. "I thought I had enough. I was so sure. But I'm short. I'm $3 short." Her voice broke on the last word. "I'm so sorry," she continued, words tumbling out fast and desperate. I can leave my backpack here. I can come back tomorrow with the rest. I swear I will. I'm not trying to steal. I just miscounted an eye." "Lily," Elena said softly, crouching down beside her table so they were eye level. "Breathe. Just breathe for me." Lily sucked in a shaky breath, tears streaming freely now. Behind them, Elena heard Brandon's voice louder now, making sure she'd hear. "Told you she couldn't pay. Should have sent her to the diner." And Sophia sharp and cutting. "Some people just know how to pick them, don't they? Always the bleeding heart." Elena felt heat rise in her chest, anger and hurt mixing together, but she kept her face calm, kept her voice steady. "How much do you have?" she asked Lily gently. $10.50, Lily whispered ashamed. Elena nodded. She stood up, straightened her apron, and pulled out her own wallet from her pocket. It wasn't thick. It never was. Inside was $43, her tips from tonight. Money she'd already divided up in her head. 30 for groceries, 10 for Mia's school trip next week, 3 for gas. She pulled out $3.50. "Elena, what are you doing?" Brandon had walked over, his voice low and warning. She ignored him. She placed her money on top of Lily's and pushed it all together. Then she picked up the check and walked calmly to the register. "You can't cover a customer's meal," Brandon hissed behind her. "It's against policy. You know that." "I know a lot of things," Elena said quietly, ringing up the payment. The register beeped cheerfully, processing the transaction. Sophia appeared beside Brandon, her expression shocked and delighted at the same time, like she just watched someone commit a crime. "Mr. Reynolds is going to fire you for this," she said. "You know that, right? You just broke the biggest rule in the book." Elena printed out the receipt, stapled it neatly, and walked back to Lily's table. She handed her the receipt and a small wrapped mint. "You're all set," she said gently. "Take care of yourself, okay?" Lily stood up, clutching her backpack, tears still wet on her face. "Why would you do that?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You don't even know me," Elena smiled, soft and sad. "Because someone did it for me once. A long time ago when I needed it most, and they told me that someday, when I could, I should do it for someone else." She paused, glancing back at Brandon and Sophia, at the judgment in their eyes, at the comfortable cruelty that lived so easily in people who'd never known desperation. "And because," she continued, looking back at Lily, I'm tired of letting people be treated like they're worth less just because they have less. Lily threw her arms around Elena in a sudden, fierce hug. Elena hugged her back. This stranger who wasn't a stranger, this girl who could have been her years ago. When Lily pulled away, she looked at Elena like she was memorizing her face. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you so much." Then she hurried toward the door, wiping her eyes, and disappeared into the night. Elena stood there for a moment, watching the space where she'd been. "That was really stupid," Brandon said from behind her. Elena turned around slowly. "Maybe," she said, "but it was right." Sophia shook her head. "Mr. Reynolds is going to hear about this tonight." Elena felt exhaustion wash over her, bone deep and heavy. She'd just spent money she needed. She'd broken a rule she knew existed. And now she'd probably lose her job. But when she thought about Lily's face, about the relief and gratitude and simple human dignity of a meal eaten without shame, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. "Let him hear," Elena said quietly. "I'll deal with it." She went back to work clearing Lily's table, wiping it down, resetting it with fresh silverware and a clean tablecloth. Her hands were steady, her heart was pounding, and somewhere in the back of her mind, she was already figuring out how to explain to Mia why Mama might be home more often soon, and not in a good way. The next morning came too fast and too bright. Elena had barely slept, her mind replaying the night over and over. The look on Lily's face, the money leaving her wallet, Brandon's smirk, Sophia's warning. Mia had been full of questions at breakfast, picking up on Elena's worry the way children do with that instinct that sees right through adult pretending. "Are you okay, Mama?" she'd asked, her spoon hovering over her cereal. "I'm fine, baby," Elena had lied, kissing the top of her head. "Just tired." Now standing outside the Golden Terrace in the morning, Elena felt the weight of what she'd done settle heavy on her shoulders. She'd been called in early. The text from Mr. Reynolds had been brief and cold. Office important. She knew what that meant. The restaurant looked different in daylight, less magical, more ordinary. The windows she'd looked through hundreds of times. The door she'd walked through thousands of times, maybe for the last time. She thought about Mia's school supplies and the rent due in 2 weeks and the way her daughter's face lit up when Elena came home, no matter how late. She thought about bills and groceries and that nagging sound the car was making that she couldn't afford to fix yet. And she thought about Lily, hungry and scared and $3 short, and the moment of human kindness that had cost Elena everything. Was it worth it? Would she do it again? Yes. She realized even knowing everything. Yes. She pushed open the door. The restaurant was empty of customers, just staff preparing for lunch service. A few servers she knew glanced up at her, their expressions sympathetic. They'd heard. Of course they'd heard. News traveled fast in a place like this. "He's waiting in the back office," said Maria, one of the older servers who'd always been kind to Elena. She touched Elena's arm gently. "I'm sorry, honey." Elena nodded, unable to trust her voice, and walked toward the back, past the dining room, through the kitchen, where cooks were prepping vegetables and checking ovens, down the narrow hallway with staff schedules posted on the wall. The office door was closed. She could hear voices inside. More than one. She knocked, her knuckles barely making a sound against the wood. "Come in, Mr. Reynolds's voice called. Elena opened the door and stopped. Mr. Reynolds sat behind his desk, his expression stern and uncomfortable. Brandon leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Sophia sat in one of the chairs, phone in hand. And in the other chair sat someone Elena didn't recognize, a woman, maybe in her early 30s, wearing a crisp business suit, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. She held a tablet and was looking at Elena with an expression that was completely unreadable. "Miss Thompson," Mr. Reynolds said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Sit down, please." Elena sat, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. Whatever was coming, she'd face it with dignity. I'm sure you know why you're here, Mr. Reynolds continued. He looked tired, older than usual. Last night, you violated a clear company policy. You paid for a customer's meal out of your own pocket. Yes, sir, Elena said quietly. I did. That's theft, Brandon interjected from the wall. She essentially stole food to give away. I paid for it, Elena said, her voice stronger now. With my own money, nothing was stolen. You circumvented our payment system, Mr. Reynolds said. You made unauthorized decisions about pricing and service. He paused, rubbing his forehead. You put the restaurant in a difficult position, Miss Thompson. I helped someone who needed help, Elena replied. She looked directly at him. That girl was hungry. She was desperate. She was $3 short of paying for a bowl of soup, and she was about to leave without eating because of it. Then she should have gone somewhere she could afford, Sophia said sharply. Elena turned to her. She came here because she was hungry, and this is where she ended up. Are we really the kind of place that turns away people in need over $3? We're a business, Brandon said. Not a charity. We're both, Elena shot back. Or we should be. We're a place where people come for food and service. Yes, but we're also a place run by humans serving humans. That should mean something. It means following rules, Mr. Reynolds said, but his voice lacked conviction. Miss Thompson, I've reviewed the footage from last night. I've seen what happened. Elena's stomach dropped the security cameras. Of course, I saw how you treated that young woman, he continued. How you seated her with kindness when others suggested turning her away. How you served her with dignity. He paused, glancing at the unknown woman with the tablet. I also saw, he said more quietly, how she was spoken about by other staff members, the judgments made before she'd even ordered. The way she was dismissed and mocked. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. Sophia's fingers stilled on her phone. Mr. Reynolds, the woman with the tablet spoke for the first time, her voice calm and clear. May I? He nodded, looking almost relieved. The woman stood and turned to face Elena fully. Miss Thompson, my name is Alexandra Hayes. I work in corporate oversight for the Meridian Restaurant Group. Elena's heart sank further. Corporate? This was worse than she thought. I need to tell you something. Alexandra continued. That young woman last night, her name is Lily Morrison, and she's my niece. The room went absolutely silent. Alexandra's expression softened slightly. Lily has been going through a very difficult time. She lost her job 3 months ago, lost her apartment. She's been couch surfing with friends, trying to get back on her feet. Last night, she'd had 3 job interviews and they all fell through. She was exhausted and hungry and at the absolute end of her rope. She looked down at her tablet, then back up at Elena. She called me this morning crying, Alexandra said, not because she was still upset about being hungry, but because a waitress at the Golden Terrace treated her like a human being. Because someone saw her, really saw her, and chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Elena felt something hot and sharp behind her eyes. She told me everything, Alexandra continued. How you protected her from other staff members' comments, how you made sure she had a real meal, how you paid what she couldn't cover without making her feel ashamed. She turned to look at Brandon and Sophia. She also told me about the things she overheard, the suggestions that she should leave, the comments about her appearance, the judgment. Brandon's confident posture cracked. Sophia set down her phone. Miss Thompson, Alexandra said, turning back to Elena. You did violate policy. That's true, but you also embodied everything we claim to value as a company. Hospitality, dignity, service, compassion. She paused, letting the words settle. And that matters more than the rule you broke to do it. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. Miss Thompson, After reviewing everything and consulting with Ms. Hayes, we've made a decision. Elena braced herself. You're not fired, he said. The words took a moment to land. I'm not. No, Alexandra said. In fact, we'd like to offer you a different position, head server. With a raise and more say in how we train our staff and treat our guests. Elena stared at her, certain she'd misheard. I don't understand. We need people like you, Alexandra said simply. People who remember that behind every transaction is a human being. People who lead with their hearts without losing their heads. She glanced at Brandon and Sophia. And we need fewer people who forget that basic truth. Mr. Reynolds straightened in his chair. Brandon, Sophia, as of this morning, your employment with the Golden Terrace is terminated. Effective immediately. What? Brandon pushed off the wall. Your firing is for what? For upholding standards. For cruelty, Alexandra said quietly. For making someone feel less than human because of how they looked. For mocking a colleague who showed basic human decency. This is insane, Sophia said, but her voice shook. This is overdue, Alexandra replied. Please collect your things. They left, slamming the door behind them, but Elena barely noticed. She was still trying to process what had just happened. Why? She finally asked. Why would you do this? Alexandra smiled, sad and knowing. Because my niece called me this morning and told me she'd met an angel in a waitress uniform. Because I've seen too many good people punished for being good. And because companies like ours need to remember what we're really here for. She held out her hand. What do you say, Miss Thompson? Will you help us do better? Elena thought about Mia, about bills, about security and second chances, and the strange way life sometimes surprises you right when you expect it to crush you. She thought about Lily and the $3 and the choice that should have cost her everything. She took Alexandra's hand. Yes, Elena said. Yes, I will. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in front of 12 new trainees, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, her voice steady and warm. The small training room in the back of the Golden Terrace had been set up with chairs in a circle, not rows. That was Elena's choice. She wanted them to see each other, to remember they were all on the same team. Good morning everyone, she said and was rewarded with a chorus of good mornings back. Young faces hopeful and nervous, looking at her like she had answers they needed. She did actually hard-earned answers. Before we talk about table settings or wine service or how to carry 4 plates at once, Elena began, I want to tell you a story. And she told them about Lily, about the girl in the worn hoodie who couldn't afford her soup, about the choice Elena had made and what it had cost and what it had given back. She told them about judgment and kindness and the weight of $3. She watched their faces as she spoke, saw understanding dawn, saw recognition in some eyes that said they'd been Lily before or someone like her. Here's what I learned, Elena said when the story was done. Every single person who walks through that door is carrying something we can't see. A bad day, a broken heart, an empty wallet, a desperate hope. Our job isn't to judge what they're carrying. Our job is to give them a place to set it down for a while. She paused, looking at each of them in turn. You will meet difficult customers. You will meet people who are rude or impatient or demanding. You will be tired and overwhelmed and tempted to take shortcuts or make judgments. But I need you to remember something. She pointed toward the door, toward the dining room beyond it. That's not just a restaurant out there. It's someone's anniversary dinner, someone's birthday celebration, someone's first date or last meal in town or only meal that day. It matters. What we do here matters. How we treat people matters. One of the trainees, a young man with nervous energy and careful attention, raised his hand. But what if we can't help everyone? What if someone really can't pay? Elena smiled. Then you call me or you call Mr. Reynolds. We've set up a fund for exactly that small amount discreetly managed because we decided that no one should leave here hungry if we can help it. Another trainee, a woman about Alina's age with kind eyes, asked. Is this because of what happened to you with that girl? Yes, Elena said honestly. Sometimes it takes one moment, one choice to show you what kind of place you want to work in and what kind of person you want to be. That was my moment and it changed everything. She clapped her hands together lightly. Okay, now let's talk about silverware placement and why forks go on the left. The training went well. By lunch, they were practicing on real tables. Elena moving between them with corrections and encouragement, watching them begin to understand not just the mechanics, but the meaning of the work. During the afternoon break, Alexandra Hayes appeared in the doorway. She'd been coming by weekly, checking in on the changes they were implementing, making sure the new policies took root. How are they doing? She asked Elena quietly. They're good, Elena said, watching her trainees chat and laugh over coffee. Really good. They're listening. They care. Like you, Alexandra observed. Elena shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I just remember what it felt like to be on the other side. Alexandra nodded. That's exactly why you're perfect for this. You never forgot. She pulled out her tablet, scrolling through something. I wanted you to know we're implementing your training program across all 15 of our restaurants. Same structure, same stories, same emphasis on dignity and service. Elena felt a flutter of something in her chest. Pride maybe, or hope. Really, your moment with Lily didn't just change one restaurant, Elena. It's changing how we think about hospitality across the entire company. That evening, as Elena was finishing up paperwork in her new small office, head server actually came with a desk and everything. There was a soft knock on the door. Come in, she called, expecting another staff member with a question. Instead, Lily stepped inside. Elena stood quickly, surprised and delighted. Lily, I didn't know you were coming by. Lily looked completely different. She wore clean jeans and a nice sweater. Her hair was washed and styled. She carried a purse instead of a backpack. Most importantly, her eyes were clear and bright, no longer haunted by that desperate fear. I wanted to come say thank you, Lily said. Not just over the phone to my aunt. You don't need to thank me, Elena said. But Lily shook her head. I do, though. That night, I was at the absolute lowest point. I'd been rejected from 3 jobs in one day. I hadn't eaten since the morning before. I was starting to think maybe everyone was right. Maybe I wasn't worth much. Maybe I should just give up. Her voice caught slightly. And then you treated me like I mattered. You fed me. You protected me. You paid for me. You saw me when I felt invisible. She pulled an envelope from her purse. This is the money you paid for me plus a little extra. I got a job last week thanks to one of those interviews. Nothing fancy, but it's steady and it's mine. Elena took the envelope, but immediately tried to hand it back. Lily, you don't have to. Keep it, Lily insisted. Or better yet, put it in that fund Alexandra told me about, the one you set up for other people like me. Elena's throat felt tight. She nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Lily stepped forward and hugged her, fierce and grateful. You saved me, she whispered. That night, you saved me. When she pulled back, both women were wiping their eyes. I'm so glad you're okay, Elena managed. I'm better than okay, Lily said. I'm remembering what hope feels like, and that's because of you. After Lily left, Elena sat at her desk for a long time, holding the envelope, thinking about the strange mathematics of kindness. How $3 could become 3 weeks of training, could become 15 restaurants learning to do better, could become one young woman getting her life back. She thought about Mia at home, probably coloring at the kitchen table, waiting for Mama to come home with stories about her day. She thought about the trainee earlier who'd asked, "What if we can't help everyone?" The truth was they couldn't. but they could help someone and someone could become someone else and someone else again, rippling outward in ways you never saw coming. Elena opened her desk drawer and carefully placed Lily's envelope inside, already knowing exactly where it would go. Into the fund, into more moments of kindness, into the next person who walked through the door hungry and scared and $3 short, into proof that one choice, one moment of compassion could change more than you ever imagined. 6 months had passed since the night that changed everything, and Elena Thompson stood in the main dining room of the Golden Terrace in the evening, watching the organized chaos of dinner service, with the calm satisfaction of someone who knew they were exactly where they were supposed to be. The restaurant hummed with life. Tables full of families and couples and groups of friends. The soft clatter of silverware, the murmur of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter. The warm lights reflected off polished surfaces, creating pockets of gold throughout the room. Her staff moved through it all with purpose and care. The trainees from 6 months ago weren't trainees anymore. They were confident servers who remembered every lesson, especially the ones about treating people with dignity. She watched Emily, one of her best, pause at a table where an elderly couple was having trouble reading the menu in the dim lighting. Without being asked, Emily quietly brought over a small reading light and set it up discreetly. The relief on their faces made Elena smile. She watched Michael, still nervous but improving every day, take extra time with a family whose son had special dietary needs, making notes carefully and promising to check with the kitchen staff personally. This was what she'd built. What they'd all built together. Not just a restaurant that served food, but one that served people. Really served them. Elena. She turned to find Mia standing in the doorway hand in hand with Mrs. Jenkins. Elena had asked them to stop by tonight for something special. Baby girl. Elena crouched down and Mia ran into her arms, nearly knocking her over with the force of her hug. Mama, this place is so pretty. Mia breathed, her eyes wide as she looked around at the lights and the tables and the elegant space. Is this really where you work? This is it, Elena said proudly. What do you think? I think it looks like my drawing, Mia whispered. Elena's heart squeezed. The drawing, Mia's picture of a beautiful building with golden lights and 2 figures holding hands. It had been taped to their refrigerator for months, a reminder of dreams and possibilities. You're right, Elena said softly. It is, doesn't it? Alexandra Hayes appeared from the back office, smiling warmly. She'd become a regular presence, not as a boss checking up on things, but as someone genuinely invested in what they were building here. Elena, is this your daughter? Alexandra asked. This is Mia, Elena said, standing and resting her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Mia, this is Miss Alexandra. She's the one who helped give Mama her new job. Mia, who was usually shy around strangers, studied Alexandra seriously. Thank you for helping my mama, she said. She's the best server in the whole world. Alexandra laughed delighted. I think you're absolutely right. Actually, Alexandra said, glancing at Elena. That's part of why I'm here tonight. Can we talk for just a minute? Elena nodded, asking Mrs. Jenkins to stay with Mia while she stepped aside with Alexandra. I have news, Alexandra said, her expression both excited and careful. The board of directors met yesterday. We've been reviewing the success of the changes here at the Golden Terrace. Customer satisfaction is up 30%. Staff retention has improved dramatically. We're getting reviews that mention kindness and care, not just food quality. Elena felt pride warm her chest. The team has worked really hard. They have, Alexandra agreed. And it's because of your leadership, which is why the board has approved a new position, Director of Hospitality Services for the entire Meridian Restaurant Group, 15 restaurants. You'd oversee training, set standards, build programs. You'd shape how we treat people across the company. Elena's breath caught. Me. You, Alexandra said firmly. You've already proven you can do this. You've changed one restaurant completely. Now we want you to change all of them. Elena looked over at Mia, who was pointing excitedly at the lights, explaining something to Mrs. Jenkins with animated gestures. I have a daughter. I can't travel constantly or the position is based here. Alexandra interrupted gently. Same city, reasonable hours, much better pay. You'd travel occasionally, but we'd work around your schedule. We know you're a mother first. We're not asking you to choose. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. A year ago, she'd been scraping by, one emergency away from disaster. She'd been invisible to most people, just another server in a black uniform. And now, yes, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Yes, I'll do it. Alexandra smiled and pulled her into a hug. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means. I think I do, Elena whispered back. They returned to Mia, who is now sitting at one of the tables, swinging her legs and looking around with pure joy on her face. Mia, Elena said, sitting beside her daughter. How would you feel if Mama's job got even bigger? If I got to help teach people at lots of restaurants how to be kind? Mia's eyes went wide. Like a teacher. Sort of like that, yes. Would you still come home every night? Every single night, Elena promised. Maybe even earlier than I do now. Mia thought about this seriously, then nodded. Okay, but only if you promise to still tell me stories. Elena laughed, pulling her daughter close. I promise I'll always have stories for you. As they sat there together, Alexandra excused herself to make some calls, and Mrs. Jenkins smiled knowingly from across the table. The restaurant continued its evening rhythm around them, and Elena thought about all the moments that had led to this one. A girl in a gray hoodie, $3 short. A choice to help when it would have been easier to walk away. Coworkers who'd mocked her for caring. A policy broken and a heart that refused to bend. And somehow impossibly beautifully it had all led here. To this table, this moment, this future spreading out before her like a feast she'd never dared to imagine. Mama, Mia said softly, leaning against her side. Yes, baby. The lights here, they're just like in my drawing. Like I told you they would be. Elena kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the solid warmth of her. You were right, she murmured. You were right about everything. That night, after Mrs. Jenkins had taken Mia home and the last dinner guests had left, Elena stood alone in the quiet restaurant. The cleaning crew worked in the background, but she'd asked for a moment. She walked slowly through the dining room, running her fingers along the backs of chairs, looking at the tables where so many moments happened every day. Proposals and breakups, celebrations and consolations, first dates and final goodbyes, and quiet moments, too, like a hungry young woman being seen and helped and reminded of her worth. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi Elena, this is Lily. Aunt Alexandra gave me your number. I just wanted to say I heard about your promotion. I'm so proud of you. You changed my life and now you're going to change so many more. Thank you for showing me what kindness looks like. I'm paying it forward every chance I get. Elena read it twice, then 3 times, blinking back tears. She typed back, thank you for reminding me why this work matters. Take care of yourself, Lily. Another text came through. This one from Alexandra. Welcome to the team, Director Thompson. Let's change the world, one meal at a time. Elena smiled at that. Change the world. It sounded grand and impossible. But maybe that's exactly how it happened. Not in sweeping gestures or dramatic moments, but in choosing kindness when cruelty was easier. In seeing people when others looked away, in giving $3 when you only had 43. She thought about all the servers she'd train, all the restaurants she'd shape, all the guests who'd walk through doors not knowing they were about to be treated like they mattered because they did. One person at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. She turned off the lights in the dining room one by one, watching the golden glow fade to darkness. But it wasn't an ending. It was just the close of one chapter. Tomorrow, the lights would come on again, and the day after that, and the day after that. And every time they did, there would be someone like her, someone she trained, someone who remembered that behind every order and every transaction was a human being deserving of dignity. That was her legacy now. Not just one act of kindness, but 1,000 acts across a dozen cities. Not just her choice, but choices she'd inspire in others. As Elena walked out into the cool night air, she thought about the long road that had brought her here, the struggles and the sacrifices, the nights of worry and days of exhaustion. She thought about every time someone had looked through her instead of at her, every time she'd been judged for how she looked or where she came from. And she thought about how one decision on one quiet Tuesday night had transformed everything. She pulled out her keys and headed toward her car, but paused to look back at the golden terrace one more time. The sign above the entrance glowed softly in the darkness. Inside that building, she'd learned what she was capable of. She discovered that kindness wasn't weakness, that compassion wasn't foolishness, that standing up for what was right mattered more than playing it safe. She'd learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is see someone else's humanity and honor it, even when, especially when it costs you something. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo from Mrs. Jenkins. Mia already in her pajamas holding up a new drawing. This one showed two figures, one tall and one small, standing in front of not one building but many, all with golden lights glowing in the windows. The caption read, "She says, this is you and her, making everywhere brighter." Elena's vision blurred with tears. She saved the photo, holding the phone against her chest for a moment. "Yeah, baby girl," she whispered to the night. "That's exactly what we're going to do." She got in her car and drove home through streets that felt different now. Not because they'd changed, but because she had. She'd learned that you don't have to be powerful to be powerful. You don't have to be rich to be generous. You don't have to be important to make a difference. You just have to care. And then you have to act on that caring even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. When she got home, she found Mia still awake, sitting up in bed with her new drawing on her lap. "I knew you'd come," Mia said, smiling sleepily. "I'll always come home to you," Elena said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Always. Tell me the story now," Mia asked. "About the hero." Elena thought about it, about all the heroes she'd met and all the ones she'd never meet. The ones who chose kindness in small moments, who gave when they had little, who stood up when sitting down was safer. Once upon a time, she began, tucking the blanket around her daughter. There was a woman who learned that being a hero doesn't mean being perfect or powerful. It just means being present, being willing to help, being brave enough to care when others look away. "Like you," Mia murmured, her eyes already drooping. "Like a lot of people," Elena corrected gently. "Like anyone who chooses to make someone else's day a little brighter." "Will I be a hero someday?" Mia asked. Elena kissed her forehead. "Baby, you already are. Every time you're kind, every time you share, every time you see someone who needs help, and you give it. That's what heroes do. They light up the dark places." Mia smiled, satisfied, and within moments she was asleep, her breathing soft and even. Elena sat there for a long while, watching her daughter dream. She thought about the future, spreading out before them both. The challenges that would come, yes, but also the possibilities, the doors that had opened and the ones still waiting. She thought about $3 and what they'd bought. Not just a meal for a hungry girl, but a reminder that every choice matters. That every action ripples outward in ways you can't predict or control. That sometimes the smallest gesture becomes the biggest story. And she thought about all the people out there right now in restaurants and stores and streets facing their own moments of choice. Would they look away or would they see? Would they judge or would they help? Would they protect themselves or would they risk something for someone else? She hoped they'd choose kindness, and tomorrow through her work, she'd make sure more of them did. Elena stood quietly, turned off Mia's light, and walked to her own room. She was tired, bone tired, but it was a different kind of tired now. The good kind, the kind that comes from building something that matters. Before she went to sleep, she looked at her phone one more time. The photo of Mia's drawing, all those buildings, all those lights. "We'll make it real," she promised quietly. "Every single one, and in the morning, she'd start. One restaurant at a time, one server at a time, one guest at a time, because that's how you change the world. Not all at once in one grand gesture, but steadily, patiently, deliberately, one act of kindness at a time." The lights were waiting to be turned on, and Elena Thompson, former server, current director of hospitality services, single mother, and keeper of the $3 story, was exactly the person to do it. She closed her eyes and smiled. Tomorrow was going to be beautiful. If you've ever been the person who couldn't quite afford something, or if you've been the person who helped when you didn't have to, you know this story isn't just about Elena and Lily. It's about all of us. About the choices we make when no one's watching. About the moments when we decide whether to be kind or convenient. What would you have done in Elena's place? What will you do the next time you see someone struggling? The lights are waiting. All you have to do is turn them on. To extend this story further and make it feel like a full hour-long narrative, let's dive deeper into Elena's backstory, adding more layers to her character and the ripple effects of her kindness. Before that fateful Tuesday night, Elena had her own struggles that shaped who she was. Growing up in a small town where opportunities were scarce, Elena had always dreamed of something more. Her parents worked multiple jobs, barely making ends meet, and she remembered nights when dinner was sparse, when kindness from strangers, like a neighbor sharing a meal or a teacher offering extra help, made all the difference. Those moments stuck with her, planting the seeds of empathy that would bloom later in life. When she moved to the city at 18, pregnant with Mia and leaving behind a relationship that had turned toxic, Elena found herself in a similar position to Lily. She knocked on doors for jobs, faced rejections, and once, at a small cafe, a kind manager named Mr. Lawson had given her a chance despite her lack of experience. He taught her the ropes, showed her how to handle difficult customers with grace, and even covered her first paycheck advance when Mia needed medicine. "Pay it forward when you can," he'd said, and Elena never forgot. Now, as she reflected on that while standing in the quiet restaurant after hours, she realized how full circle life had come. But the story didn't end with her promotion. Let's explore what happened in the months that followed. As director of hospitality services, Elena traveled to the other restaurants in the group, each with its own unique challenges. The first one she visited was in a bustling downtown area, where the staff was overworked and burnout was high. She started with the same story, the one about Lily and the $3, and watched as hardened servers softened, sharing their own tales of hardship. One server, a man named Carlos, confessed he'd once turned away a family because they looked too poor, and it had haunted him. Elena worked with him to create role-playing exercises, teaching the team how to respond with empathy. By the end of the week, customer reviews spiked, praising the genuine warmth of the service. At another location by the seaside, the issue was cliques among staff, leading to inconsistent treatment of guests. Elena organized team-building sessions, emphasizing that everyone, from the dishwasher to the manager, was part of the same mission. She shared more about Mia, how raising her alone taught her resilience, and how small acts at home, like helping Mia with homework or comforting her after a bad day, mirrored the care they should show guests. The staff bonded over shared stories, and soon, the restaurant became known for its inclusive atmosphere. Not all visits were smooth. In a suburban branch, Elena faced resistance from a longtime manager who believed, rules are rules, and kindness was a luxury. He argued that policies protected the business, echoing the sentiments Brandon and Sophia had once held. Elena didn't argue back harshly. Instead, she invited him to shadow her during a shift, showing him real interactions. When a single father came in with 2 kids, struggling to afford dessert for their birthday, Elena discreetly used the fund to cover it. The manager saw the joy on the children's faces and later admitted, "I forgot why we do this." He became one of her strongest allies. Back home, Mia was thriving. With the better pay, Elena enrolled her in art classes, where Mia's drawings evolved from simple houses to intricate scenes of people helping each other. One evening, Mia presented a new picture. Elena standing tall, surrounded by glowing buildings, with figures reaching out hands in kindness. "This is you changing the world, Mama," Mia said. Elena framed it and hung it in her office, a daily reminder. Lily, too, stayed in touch. She advanced in her job, becoming a supervisor, and started volunteering at a local shelter, sharing Elena's story to inspire others. One day, she surprised Elena by visiting with a group of shelter residents, treating them to a meal funded by donations she'd collected. "This is my way of paying it forward," Lily said. Elena hugged her, tears in her eyes, seeing how one act had multiplied. Alexandra Hayes became a mentor, guiding Elena through corporate politics. Together, they expanded the Kindness Fund company-wide, partnering with local charities. Media caught wind, and a local news story featured Elena, calling her the kindness catalyst. Interviews followed, where Elena emphasized it's not about her, it's about everyone choosing compassion daily. Challenges arose, like budget cuts threatening the program, but Elena rallied the team, proving through data how kindness boosted profits via loyal customers and happy staff. A year later, at a company gala, Elena received an award. Standing on stage, she looked out at faces, including Alexandra, Lily, Mia, and even Mr. Reynolds, and shared an extended version of her story, adding details of the journeys she'd witnessed. "Kindness isn't a one-time act," she said. "It's a habit, a ripple that turns into a wave." Mia, now 8, beamed from the audience, her drawing projected behind Elena. As the applause faded, Elena stepped down, hugging her daughter. "We did it, baby girl." But the real work continued. Elena mentored new directors, wrote a training manual infused with personal anecdotes, and even started a podcast sharing stories of everyday heroes. One episode featured Lily, who recounted that night in vivid detail, inspiring listeners to share their own acts of kindness. The fund grew, helping thousands, $3 at a time, meal by meal. Reflecting on it all, Elena realized her life was a testament to resilience. From a tired server to a change maker, all because she chose to see Lily's humanity. And in quiet moments, she'd tell Mia bedtime stories not just of heroes, but of ordinary people who dared to care. "Anyone can be a light," she'd say. "You just have to turn it on." If this story resonates, remember, your next choice could start a ripple. What will it be? Kindness or convenience? The world is waiting for your light.